Welcome to the MotUS Edge, where we celebrate business, primarily youth sports facility management, leadership, and motivation. Co-hosted by Stacy Rowe, Cole Stott, Kevin Brubaker, and Casey Jones. We are here to fill your cup with knowledge, laughter, affirmations, and comfort knowing that you're not alone. You can and will succeed with the MotUS Edge.
What up, everybody? We are back with another episode of the MotUS Edge Podcast. Today is your favorite kind of podcast. It's the Casey and Stacy show. Whoop, whoop.
Coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
Sharing some coffee in the morning.
I left my water in the kitchen. I don't drink coffee anymore, sadly. I love coffee, though. I love the smell of coffee. I left my water in the kitchen, and since I've been discombobulated this morning, we're just going to leave it in the kitchen. And I'm going to go without a drink today.
Stacy's not in her normal podcast spot today, folks. So we don't know how this is going to go. So we'll see.
Feeling a little off kilter. But today we're going to talk about the transition from coach to leader, whether you're transitioning. I think actually there's a lot of different pieces of this. It's like, from athlete to coach is one aspect. From coach to leader is another aspect where you're actually like leading a program. Maybe you become the all-star director or different, tumbling class director, different director in your program, or potentially you become, from a coach to an owner. So those are all of the fun things that we are going to unpack here today.
Fun. Yeah. I was actually thinking about this last night of making those transitions, because I feel like I've done every single thing that there could be to do in a gym. I mean, from, in the early days, I was the birthday party director to the plumber to the head stunt guy to, we did it all because that's what you had to do in the early days.
Oh, yeah.
You just didn't have many people. So we had to do it all. But anyway, I was thinking about this last night, and I was really starting to overcomplicate it. And then I was like, well, a lot of it, I think, is not making too much of a change. Because let's think about it. If you're a coach, you're already a leader. You're leading children, which is really, really difficult to do. And then if you are being promoted up or advancing up or even promoting yourself up, there's a reason for it. And it's because it's the person you are. So that was the thing that hit my head the most, of like, maybe you don't need to make any great big changes because the person you are is the person that is being moved to a higher leadership position. So
I agree 100%. I do feel, though, that you do need to have a greater awareness shift. So if you're an athlete and you're becoming a coach, your awareness now needs to shift to more, instead of showing your skills and doing your skills and participating in the routine, you are now taking what you know and you're trying to teach it and share it to others. And so you've got to become more aware of how that process works. And I think, likewise, if you're a coach and you're becoming now, and, let's just, for an easy conversation, you've been a coach for 10 years, and now you're going to become the all-star director and you're taking over the program. And what's that shift? Well, as a coach, you're focused on coaching your team. You're focused on the rubric and the score sheets and, whatever have you. And yeah, maybe you have some coaches in the gym that ask you for help here and there, but you're mainly focused every single day on your team. Now, as an all-star director, you have to become more aware, if you want to do a good job, of all of the teams in the program. You might need to have more parent conversations than you're used to having with your team and other teams. Now you've got to learn how to communicate. It's one thing when you're communicating with parents about your own team, but it's a different animal when now you're communicating with parents about a different team that you were not involved in. So you've got to kind of get both sides of the story, go through the whole process, so you're learning. So I think it's more just an awareness. And then the other thing I think too is, I feel like the shift from coach to director, you've got to have more business acumen. It needs to become more important, and finding a balance between like you're still coaching. So you still have to be ingrained in the coaching and the rubric and the score sheet and the routine and all the things. But now you got to worry about everybody else's routines. You got to worry about the budget. You got to make sure that you are, collecting enough money to send all the coaches everywhere and doing all the things right. So I think, who you are as a person doesn't necessarily need to change, but there's an awareness, a bigger awareness that comes with any leadership change, whatever that is.
Yeah, I was just, we've all seen it, especially we've all seen it. Heck, maybe we've done it. I mean, I'm sure I've done this to some point of like, oh, they put me in charge of this. I got to puff my chest up and walk out here and be a different person. So that's kind of my point on that.
100%.
But backing up to what you're talking to there, the term that comes to mind in our organization, program minded. Is this person program minded? We're gonna bring them into a director's role. Is this a person that can truly, truly have the best interest of the program at the forefront? Because the reality is most of us come in and we're coaching a team or two. And especially when you're getting started, sometimes we forget this. When the young coaches come in, their reality is that team is their world, you know, and they almost have blinders on to everything else going on in the gym because you don't want to be that coach. You don't want to be the person that we head off to the competition and everybody does well except for my team. So you really get those blinders on and you only focus on your team, and it becomes a singleness of purpose there, and you forget the big picture of what you're trying to do. Or I don't even know that you forget it. You just don't look at it. But to move into these other roles like we're talking about, that's got to be a person that can look at the entire thing, and they're literally trying to make sure that all teams are successful, that everybody is getting the things that they need. And that's a tough job to do.
100%. It's a tough job to do. And I think people do that job in different ways. And first, let me say, I agree with you 100% on your philosophy of like, just because I've moved now from, the role of coach to director or director to owner or, owner to franchise or whatever, pick your title. It doesn't change it shouldn't change who you are as a person, and you shouldn't be puffing your chest out. And, I agree 100%.
New sheriff in town. Everybody sit down and shut up and listen to me.
Yes. Yes, that is exactly to do.
We have seen those people.
100%.
I mean, that has happened in our organization. I mean, literally like, hey, this guy be great or this girl will be great. And then all of a sudden they take on this different personality. It's like, whoa, we didn't put you here for.
Well, and I think it's like not, in my experience with those kind of people, it's not necessarily that they like intend to have that kind of an attitude. They're trying to do a good job and they feel like that's kind of what they have to do a good job, because they don't know. They want to be successful and they aren't really sure how to go about doing that. So they puff their chest out and, beat their chest and I'm in charge kind of thing.
So let's talk about this. I think as the gym business has grown or turned into more of a true business model, one thing that, I mentioned it early on, back in the day, we had to wear a lot of hats, we had to be a lot of different things. And then as we've grown over the years and put different people in different roles, we've realized that, man, some people really aren't good at budgeting. Some people really aren't good at organization. But these may be people that are great coaches, and they may be able to lead other coaches. They may be able to teach score sheets. So, specializing and within your gym and within your programs, being able to specialize and really identify who's good at what, instead of having everybody try to wear multiple hats. And you can take that down to the ground roots level of, in the early days at Stingrays, if you wanted to work at Stingrays, the rules were that you had to do everything. You had to, from a coaching standpoint, you had to teach classes, you had to teach privates, you had to do camps, you had to do all of those things to coach a team. Well, it became apparent over time that some people, they may be a great big picture coach, great overall coach, but they may not be that great at teaching a tumbling class. Or they may be, or vice versa, they may be really, really strong coach, tumbling coach, And man, kids are getting skills left and right and great technique, and it looks awesome. But running an entire team of 30 kids may not be their strong suit. So really trying to get people into the correct spot.
I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I also think that, I don't know, it's an ebb and a flow, like when you start out and you're a smaller gym, and we were all there, at one point in time, right? I mean, I opened up my doors and I was excited to have like 50 kids, and we had class names, and the teams had names, obviously, but like for our tumbling classes, we had class names, but some of the classes only had one kid in them for so long, which we don't let that happen now, obviously. But in the beginning, you're just trying to grow the program. So we would call the class by the kid's name because you're the only one in it for the longest time. But I think
you're in the Stacy class.
Right. Yeah. But it's all part of the growth of the process. Like you said, like now you get to be an owner, but before you were the plumber, you were the cleaner, you were the accountant, you were the, coach, you did all the things. And so I think that, it's part of the evolution of gym growth as well, that in the beginning, you kind of have to have people that are willing to do all the things. And then as you get bigger, you kind of figure out who's better at what thing, and you kind of drive people into those places, and ideally that's where you want to get all the right people on the right seats on the bus. And that's what they're focusing on, but sometimes you got to have people bouncing around from seat to seat because you just don't have enough, personnel or the resources yet to quite get everybody in the right seats on the bus. I think it's all part of the evolution of growth, I think.
Absolutely. And so much of that stuff, I didn't even know we needed it. You've mentioned budgeting a couple of times. That word's come up, but I mean, I remember to begin with, it was like all the coaches were dealing with it. The team mom was dealing with it. Like everybody in the gym was dealing with the budget. And then I backed off and I was like, hey, we can't do this. Like, and then people were getting mad at the coaches because the coaches were trying to, and then we shifted all that to a front desk lady and like, hey, she does that. If anybody's got a question, you send them there,
Agree.
And, but man, those are tough transitions, even getting to that. So, I think a lot of developing into a good leader, and man, I made a ton of mistakes here, is delegating and being able to give that, whatever you want to call it, control. These are kind of negative words in business, but control, power, whatever, but giving that to someone else, not looking over their shoulder and micromanaging them, and trusting that they're going to do a great job, and then allowing them to do their job. And like I said, I have struggled with that at times.
I think everybody does. I know. Yeah. I mean, we all do. Nicole used to tell me early on in my career every day, like, you can't do it all. You have to learn to delegate. You have to learn to delegate. You gotta give responsibility to other people. And it's true. You can only get so big by yourself. And I think that it just I don't know. I mean, we've, like you said, we've both worked in every pocket of the industry, I feel like, in all different ways. And so I think that it becomes, you have to learn that in order to be a leader that delegates so that you can grow, your job now is dealing with like all of the things that come from that delegation, because you're not the one doing it. So you're owning it all. And I don't mean owning as in you're the owner. I mean, you're putting it on your back, but you're not the one doing all the things. And so people are going to make their own decisions, and, those could be good decisions. Those could be bad decisions. They could be, I don't necessarily think most decisions are not bad decisions, but they're more learning decisions, if you will. And so you've got to help.
Well, and that's the thing. You've got, think of all the times that we've failed and people have given us grace. Yep. So we've got to do the same thing for the others that are in different positions. We've got to allow them the opportunity to fail, and then give them grace when they do, and give them the opportunity to make it right, because that's exactly what happened to us. I've had the pleasure of working one-on-one with my daughter for the last couple of years. She's come into the business and she runs our office. But man, I've had to have a couple serious talks with myself. And because that's been a little bit challenging. And she may not even know this, but and heck, Kevin actually helped me with this. I've talked to him a couple of times on it. Don't nobody tell Kevin that I actually said that. He helped me. Don't let him know that. But that's the thing. I had literally the same office manager / bookkeeper for over 20 years. And I feel like that Stingrays owes a lot of its success to her. I mean, she laid a great foundation of customer service and just did so many wonderful things. And my daughter came in to take that position. And this lady's name was Susie. My daughter's name is Emily. So it right off the bat, it was like I was getting frustrated because I'm like, well, Emily's not doing it like Susie, and Emily's this and Emily's that. And I was internalizing a lot of this because I didn't want to take our day-to-day business life and mess our relationship up.
Right.
But, it took some different talks and some different things. And then I had to realize that Emily is not going to be like Susie.
Emily's Emily.
Correct. And I need to get out of the way, because if I'm going to allow Emily to run this office, then she needs to figure it out and figure it out her way. And that was a challenge, not just for me. We have some other employees that have been there 20 years and they're used to how Susie does it as well. But, a couple years later, and it's in a lot better spot. And one thing that I've learned is like, man, just stay out of everybody's business. I used to feel like I needed to reply to every GroupMe message, every text message, every email, because we do a great job of communicating at Stingrays and talking to each other. But, there'll be 5 of us connected on an email. And a lot of times that has nothing to do with anything that I'm over. But, 10 years ago, I felt like I needed to, hey, I'm going to reply to this email just so that everybody knows I'm here. Yeah. Everybody knows I'm paying attention. Everybody knows that I care. And I have over time been able to step away. I still read the email and look at it, but a lot of times I don't have to do anything.
No, it's a hard thing.
Work they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a hard thing to do. I feel like to relinquish that, like you said, control is kind of the best word, I think, and it's not so much, I feel like you're much the same way. For me, it's not control. It's not like I have to control everything. It's just, I do care. I am reading it. I want people to know that I care, but you're right. You have to let your people, do their thing and do their job. I think one of the other interesting challenges, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, is, when you transition into a leadership role, into a leadership, we'll call it a business leadership role, because as a coach, you're a leader already anyway, right? So you've got leadership skills in you. But as you transition in within the business in a leadership role, learning how to now be the leader of your peers. And you kind of touched on that a little bit with Emily. Like she was, she's now running the office and she's doing things differently than somebody else. And there were other people that still worked for, Susie. And now Emily's coming in and doing something different, and they don't understand, why. And so it's like learning learning to build that trust. And how do you build that trust with those people that maybe were your peers, or, maybe they weren't your peers. You could be coming into a new leadership role in a new gym that you don't know anybody, but they still liked the person, that they had, you know what I mean? So how do you build that trust? This is really simple.
I mean, you just talk about them behind their back. It's funny because that's what came to my head, but a lot of that happened. Like, I've got to have this conversation over here to say, like, hey, we're going to let this fly because we want to make a change. This is something new. We're going to do this. And then getting people to work together, and giving people to offer, like I said, that same grace that we've all offered each other. And sometimes we have to remind each other of that,
Yeah. And, I think that, kind of communicating your vision, even in like an office management role, like using Emily as an example. Sorry, Emily, we're not picking on you, but your dad brought you up. So we're just using this as the example.
Gotta bring her on one day.
Totally. We do. We need to have her on. That'd be fun. Anyway, so, using her as the example, like, okay, we're going to make these changes to the way that we do things. And instead of just, I'm here, I'm new, like you said, puff your chest out, like I'm the new kid in charge and this is what we're doing and you just need to fall in line and do it. I think the approach that is usually more well received is just like, hey, I understand that we've been doing X, Y, Z. I found this new way. I think it might be easier. And this is why it's going to be easier. And if everybody will just hang in there with me for a little while, like we'll get to the other side and you'll be like, oh, I have, this is more efficient or more effective. And it's not that what you had wasn't working. It's just, people have different people have different ways of doing things and different ways to get from A to B. And that's okay. It's okay.
The why, if you give people the why, hey, I want to try this because, this is my why. And man, we fail at that all the time of like, goodness gracious, why don't these 75 people just understand that this is the best way to do it? Well, knucklehead, you didn't explain it to them. You didn't tell them.
Right.
You didn't share your vision. So I think you
a
make
lot of times people just,
point there.
they have a hard time kind of seeing too, some people, just the way they're wired, like they have a hard time kind of seeing the plan and the path, even if you communicate it. But if you're not communicating it, they're going to not see it at all.
That's a great point, man. A lot of my frustrations come when I'm like, well, why can't they just read my mind? If the world just knew what I was trying to do here, but I hadn't told anybody. So.
I think it would be scary if the world could read my mind. There's lots of things going on in this head of mine.
Lots of stuff bouncing around in there. So
yes.
It is funny. Yeah, I was looking through our notes here, and you just hit on this, but managing former peers or things or different people that report to you. I don't feel like I've ever had too much of an issue with that personally, but I've seen that within our organization. And I remember one coach, he's still with us. I love the guy. He's one of my best friends, but I remember one day we had a director and he comes storming into my office. He's like, I am not answering. I only answer to you. Like, you're my boss. You've always been my boss. And I'm like, hey, calm down. This guy's trying to run this thing and you've got to allow him to run his piece of it, so that can be troublesome for other, even like I said, that doesn't seem to be, really fall on me personally, but I have seen it affect others within the organization. And that happens as your company ages because you have people that are, that's a big challenge within or has been a challenge that's come up. We've got people like me that are old, mid 50s to later. And then we've got 19-year-olds. And, there's a couple generations in between. And the things that make us tick and the ways we communicate are vastly different, So, when you have a young person come in and they're really good at something and they're excited and they want the growth and you're like, I've got to jump on this. I've got to put this person in charge of this, give them ownership of this, which is an awesome thing. But then, man, sometimes the 45-year-old doesn't want to, why is this guy telling me what to do? So,
so you actually bring up a really good point, and I want to touch on that a little bit. So I feel like I've seen this happen, and so to caution owners out there, you want to delegate and you want to grow your business, right? So you want to give this person responsibility, and I hate to say this, but I'm calling it out because I've seen it time and time again. You are afraid to relinquish that. So you kind of almost sabotage their success, if that makes sense. You know what I'm talking about? Just like what you're saying. If this guy came to you and said, I'm going to respond, I'm going to only answer to you because I only answer to you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that fed your ego. And you were like, yeah, they're new. They don't really know what they're doing yet. It's fine. You can keep coming to me. Now you've just undermined that person's job. Maybe not intentionally, but you made it okay for him to feel that way. And you kind of told everybody else that, without telling everybody else, but you kind of set the precedent that you don't necessarily believe that this person is capable of the job. So, but instead you redirected them back to the person that they were supposed to report to.
How did you know I did that without actually ever working in our, I've done exactly what you just said.
Because I have overseen dozens of gyms for years and years and years. I have seen all of the people manipulation and the mistakes. So funny. It's like, gosh,
Stacy watching me. I've done exactly that. I'm sure I'll do it again. Not on purpose. Because we want. I'm a people person. I want people to feel good. Yep. I want everybody to feel good. So
we've all done it. We've all done it, and it's unintentional. It's unintentional. It could be because in the moment you feel bad. That person wants to come to you, so you're like, okay, you can come to me. But then that only breaks down your leadership later on down the road. And so that's why I'm saying about self-sabotage. It may not be on purpose, may not be intentional, but that's what you're accidentally, inadvertently doing. And it's, believe me, I've seen, been a part of, made all the mistakes, Casey.
We said it. Roger and I say that often. Man, when we think we've seen it all, like as soon as we say that, then God's like, no, you hadn't seen this.
I was just going to say,
here's that next thing.
I'm going to knock on some wood. I'm going to knock on some wood.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, I hope not. I feel like I've been there, done a lot of that.
Hey, lots of good talk. You want me to tell everybody about some MotUS?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So MotUS is a community of gym owners working together to help each other grow. As a member of MotUS, you get access to our Gym Owners Vault, which includes templates for every aspect of your business. We continue to add new resources constantly. In addition, you're added to the private VIP Owners Facebook group, as well as the opportunity to join monthly webinars geared towards gym owners. You also receive amazing discounts from Prime Alliance event producers, the Cheer Expo, Choice Events, All Out Brands, All Day Cheerleading, World Cheer Company, American Spirit Championships, and our awesome affiliates, Infinity, Cheer Sounds, Bookshop Fundraising, Spirit Action Shots, Big Cat Sports Travel, and much, much more. As a member, the MotUS Business Expo Conference, September 28th through 30th in Nashville, Tennessee, is included in your membership. It's an awesome business conference with 2 days of business development, leadership, and growth. The Business Expo is designed specifically with gym owners in mind. This year, we're hosting the Pioneers of All-Star book launch to celebrate the pioneers and the book. So join the movement today at www.joinmotus.com. That's www.joinmotus.com.
Awesome. You know what? For all of our gym owner listeners out there, MotUS really is an incredible organization. It's a way to be a part of something, to collaborate with like-minded gym owners and just not be on an island, and we get phone calls all the time and text messages from our members we get questions in our Facebook group, and it's just a genuine group of awesome people that really want to help each other grow. So
well, we love to talk. Literally, I was talking to a gym owner. She was on her way to vacation yesterday, driving to the beach, and got cut off a couple of times because she was out in the middle of nowhere. But those are my favorite things about MotUS, is being able to talk to gym owners and A, help them, but B, it always helps me because just sharing our stories and sharing our thoughts and helping one another is really a great community. And it's something that I wish I had 25
you and
years
I
ago.
talked on the phone yesterday for an hour and a half just about life.
We did. And we decided that life's crazy. So
correct. And we just all do our best to navigate every day of it, so.
All right. I think it's time for my favorite thing of the podcast, dad joke.
I think it is.
We got a dad joke today submitted by Darren from Arkansas. For those of you Darren's our producer. So thanks, Darren. This is a good one. So, where do you store your dad jokes?
I don't know.
A database.
That was a good one. I think that one might be my new favorite.
Very good and very fitting for Darren. So thank you,
Darren.
Yeah. So
that's great.
Be sure to send us your favorite dad jokes so we can share them on the show and give you a shout out. You can email them to Stacy at joinmotus.com or send us a DM on our social media at joinmotus.
And that's STACY, no E, no IE, STACY at joinmotus.com. All right, Casey. Well, we have a few questions from some listeners. So let's take some questions. You take this first one.
All right.
This is from Maria from Ohio. She says, I've always been confident on the mat, but now as a new gym owner, I feel like I'm starting from scratch, building credibility. What's your advice for gaining respect and trust quickly from athletes, parents, and staff? So what do you got for Maria, Casey?
Well, quickly is the hard part. So don't get too hung up on the quickly part, because I think it takes time. That could be something you build trust and in any relationship. And that's really what we do, whether we own it, whether we're coaching, we're building relationships. And to build a great relationship, you got to spend time with it. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is spending that time. When you give people your time, that's far better than giving them money, advice, anything like that. People respect that time, in my opinion, more than anything else. So put the time in, and then everything else kind of takes care of itself. I believe, if you're willing to put that time in and give yourself the opportunity to build the relationships. So I have seen many people make mistakes before on demanding respect. You need to respect me because of this, because of I have these wonderful credentials, and that often never works. I remember one of my really good friends in coaching having that conversation because he also often felt disrespected, but he was demanding that respect. You need to respect me because of this and this and this.
I think credentials are a great way to open the door for respect. But at the end of the day, people, they're not going to walk through the door and fully respect you unless you earn it, no matter what your credentials are.
Yeah. And then, very simple here. Be honest and be trustworthy. Treat people fairly.
Do what you say.
When I make a decision, am I being fair? Am I being fair to this person? Am I being fair to the coach? Am I being fair to the organization? It's not always one-sided. It's not always customers always right, because there's a coach involved. There's other people involved, but just be fair and then be honest and trustworthy with folks.
I agree. And I feel like I've said this on the podcast before, but do what you say. I talk about rules all the time, and don't make rules that you're not going to follow through with, because then you're not doing what you say. So it's very simple. Do what you say and what you can follow through with. If you can't follow through with it, then don't say it out loud, or don't make it a thing, because then you're going to just devalue yourself and your credibility down the road, which is hard to do, but it's, I think, the simplest way to gain that trust and respect.
So hopefully that helped. Stace, You want to take question number 2?
Sure. You want to read it to me?
I will do it.
All right.
Dylan from North Carolina asks, as a new gym owner, I'm struggling to define clear boundaries between personal life and gym life. Any advice on how to create a healthy balance without sacrificing business growth?
Well, shoot, Casey, I don't know if I'm the right person.
I was just saying, both of us might better skip this one. So,
Dylan, welcome to gym ownership. And no, seriously though, it is a delicate balance. And I think that we find ourselves as gym owners, we are constantly, if you're doing it right, in my opinion, you're constantly giving of yourself. Like Casey said, you're giving of your time to your staff, to your parents, to your athletes, other gym owners, whatever the case may be, and you're pouring yourself into it every single day. But it is extremely important to take time for yourself. And I am still working on this every single day, but I will tell you some of the things I have had success with. And I will also tell you that as soon as I stop doing them, I fall out of the habit. So number 1, take time for yourself, even if it's 3 times a week, to do something that you enjoy. So for me, it was like I was going to yoga class, and I would schedule it on my calendar like an appointment. So I didn't just say, I'm going to go to yoga at 9 a.m. or I'm going to go to yoga at 5 p.m. or whatever. I put it on my calendar as a block of time. And for those of you that haven't heard already, yes, I'm old fashioned. I do a paper calendar and everything is in color. And I still do that. As technology savvy as I am, I still love my paper calendar with my colored pencils. And so my color is orange. So my personal items in my calendar go in orange. And so in orange, I would write, yoga at 9 a.m. or whatever. And so I schedule that appointment. When I stopped doing that, and I have stopped doing that for yoga specifically, I stopped going to yoga, and I haven't been. So now, Dylan, thank you for asking this question, because I've been saying for the last 6 months that I need to sign back up for yoga. So I'm gonna do that, I think. So scheduling it in your calendar. And then I think it's really important if you don't have a family, if you have a family, scheduling, blocking time out for your family. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. Or if you don't have a family, blocking time out for friends. So Thursday night is family night, and you're not going to be working at the gym, and you're going to have dinner at sitting down at the table, and you're going to play a game with your family. And that's every Thursday night, or maybe it moves every week or every other week or whatever, but you schedule that. Now that doesn't mean that you're not sitting down and having dinner other nights of the week, but this is just like a scheduled, special event type of thing. And so I don't know that that works for everybody, but that's the best way I have found to try to have some time to myself.
This is a really tough one for me. And it has taken me a long time. Like I'm in a better spot than I've ever been with this. And it's because we've been blessed with a lot of great people in the gym over the years. But, I look at it and I question it because I have older children now. I've still got a young guy, but I've got, especially my boys, I've got a 25-year-old son and I've got a 20-year-old son. And when they were growing up, man, I was in the gym all the time, and it worked out great for Emily that I mentioned because she was in the gym all the time. So we got to see we were driving to the gym together and driving home at midnight after staff dinner and all those things. But, I didn't see the boys and I didn't spend as much time with them. And then when I did spend time, was I connected? And that's the thing. I don't think that.
Excellent point.
I think that we often get caught up in, man, I need all this time. You don't really need a lot of time. It's how dialed in and how connected you are. And man, goodness gracious, I'm a hypocrite right here. What I'm going to tell you to do because I didn't do it. Because I'm going to my son's baseball game. Well, I would be at that baseball game like, oh, I hadn't exercised today. I need to walk around the baseball field. I called it phonercising. So I'm literally on my phone the entire baseball game, walking around the baseball field. Now I got to see if they hit a home run or something or made a good play or made an error. I got to see all the things, but I was not engaged. I was multitasking, and I'm still bad about that. I will get up from my restaurant and go outside to take a business call in the middle of family dinner. I will still you've got to set those boundaries because it's tough because that's the thing, that and there's things now in my life where I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have done that different, because you don't get that time back with your kids. You don't get that time back with your family. I totally
agree. So making the effort it's not about just making the time, but it's making the quality time.
And it just doesn't have to be that much. It's kind of like you mentioned yoga or exercise. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week will make a huge impact on your life forever. It doesn't take, agree. You don't need to train 5 hours every day.
Or should I focus more on steady incremental growth first?
That is a great question. And I know for me, I am a little bit of a gunslinger. I think anybody in this business or any business for that matter, if there's an opportunity, then I want to go after it. So if I see an opportunity, if I see an opening, those are things that I'm going to jump on. Now where we have to be careful is to not bet the farm on these opportunities. So I don't want to spend my last $100 on an opportunity that I don't know if it's going to work. So things I think of throughout the years that I have done and had great success, but then there's been a lot of failures as well. One example in our main gym, we should start a morning program. I know, Stacy, you have helped develop morning programs and have had some gyms with huge morning programs. I know Kevin has 450 kids a week or something crazy through Charlotte All-Stars in the morning. We tried to start it at Stingrays. Well, the issue was parents were passing 4 or 5 like places before they ever got to us because of our location. So it just didn't kick off. But we didn't make a huge investment. Most of the investment was investment in time. So I was willing to give that time to give it an effort and try. So if you can do that without betting the farm, without betting everything that you have going on. So I always have a saying, I'm going to protect the bread and butter. This thing is paying the bills, so we're not going to mess with it while it's working. And then we will try all of these other things as long as it doesn't have the ability to affect the bread and butter.
I think that is some great advice. So I hope that helps, Greg.
If not, call us, Greg.
Right,
we'll talk it out.
That's right. All right. Well, let's see what Simon has to say today for our Simon Sinek quote. Communication is not about saying what we think. Communication is about ensuring others hear what we mean.
I like that.
So I thought, given our leadership topic today, that was a really good quote, because I think that can be the challenge of leadership sometimes, is saying what we think instead of making sure that people hear what we mean.
I think you're right. And I've got a little bit of politician in me. So I often am saying what I think someone wants to hear. So I can relate to this. But then I think of, how do I get better at things? And I often get better at things in a different plane. I got to learn to listen, and I got to learn to hear others first. If I can learn that on my own, then I become far better able to then do that to them so that they can hear it. So, and I think that's been one of my biggest challenges of, like, there are times where I have to tell myself, shut this and listen to what they're saying, and actually listen to it and take it in and hear them for what they're saying. So, I don't know. That's my advice.
I agree. I think it's both, and I think I've learned over the years, just in talking to all of the gym owners that I have and all the managers that I've talked to and all the staff and just, whatever, I've learned in, we'll have a meeting and I'll say XYZ and I feel like everybody's on the same page. And then we leave the meeting and everybody goes forth to conquer, and they all go forth in different ways. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. We were all in the same meeting. Y'all, like, I thought that I made myself clear, and, 4 of you have veered off and gone and done something different. Like, so you didn't hear, what I meant. I didn't communicate clearly and effectively, but I also agree with you that leadership and communication is very much about listening and hearing what others have to say just as much. So I think it's both.
I used to be, I'm sure I still do this, a master at hearing what I wanted to hear,
Yeah.
Like, the employee comes in or the coach comes in, they're having all these issues, and, like, then they walk out and, well, everything's great. Everything's awesome. I am sure that you have learned this as well. This has been something that I feel like I've learned over the years also, is there are people who you work with that will come in and they have a situation and they need advice, or they need you to guide them, and they tell you the exact truth. But then there's other people that will manipulate, and maybe manipulate isn't the right word because that's got a negative connotation, but they will share just enough portion of the story to get the answer that they want from you. But they left out half of the information. And so you learn over time to, like, dig a little further. You can't just let them come in and say XYZ. You got to go, well, what about this? And what about that? You got to ask questions and kind of poke and prod so that you can give the right advice. Because I would find that would happen to me in the beginning when I was green and learning. That would happen to me a lot. Well, Stacy said, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, I only said that because I only knew half of the story. I didn't know the other half. If I knew the other half, I would have given a different answer. Yeah. And so anyway, a funny little thing about communication. Not on purpose and not for any ill intent. But like I said, I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy. I want to be happy. So, there's times where I haven't been clear in what I say because I'm trying to make people happy, Yeah. And that almost always backfires when you do that. So I've learned the hard way on that over many, many years, and tried to become, and that's the thing, I said a minute ago, it's important that we're honest to build credit. Always trying to be honest with people. But when you're honest, then it's important that you tell them the hard things too. Yeah. And I have not always been great at that. So
no, it's not an easy thing to do. But well, I think we've had a good chat today, Casey. For our listeners out there, be sure to follow us on YouTube at the MotUS Edge, and give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Join MotUS. Wherever you listen to your podcast, give us a like or leave us a review. If you like what we're doing and you want to hear more, let us know. And if you have a gym, join the movement and sign up for MotUS today. Thank you so much for listening, and we're excited for you to have the MotUS Edge.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the MotUS Edge. We hope you had a blast. Join us next week for more on business, leadership, and motivation. Subscribe and follow the show where you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our newsletter at joinmotus.com. The MotUS Edge Podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.